Good evening. Good evening. If you are catching us live right now, then it is 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So I am saying good evening. If you are catching the replay right now, whatever time it is for you at this time, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Overseer Julius Ford, and I have the pleasure today of sharing with you from the DIG. The DIG, as we've spoken in our introduction many times before, it is an acronym for our pursuit of discovering something profound, for us being able to interact with that profound discovery in a practical way, and then finally from us to grow, or for us to grow in a way that is prolific. And when we say prolific, it's not exponential, it's not perpetual, but it is a type of growth that speaks to offspring. It is the type of growth, so much so that we grow, that it causes others to grow, almost an explosion of growth. And so that is what we're here for today. And I am the spiritual leader of Kingdom Assembly of Grace and Truth in Atlanta, Georgia. However, it is the privilege of and the position of the General Secretary of the Church of the Everlasting Kingdom, COTEC, that gives me the privilege and opportunity, a connection with Dr. Pulley, to share with you today from the book. And I'm sharing it here. Hopefully, you're able to see that. Greater Works, Miracles, Signs, and Wonders. This is a devotional journal. We are on a devotional journey. We are in consecration. And so it is my pleasure to share with you today from day 35. If you do already have the book, it is day 35 is on page 76. And so our story today happens in the city of Naim. Naim, or name, I believe that is pronounced Naim because there's some other spellings of it that allude to that, Naim. And so what happens in our text is Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 17. Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 17. And so what's happening in Naim? What's happening, Naim, and this is where we begin our discovery of something profound. This is where we look for something that resonates with us, something that connects, something that clicks, something that causes us to ponder or, wow. Now, so in our text today, I'm simply going to read it for you. It says, and it came to pass the day after that when he being Jesus, went into a city called Naim, and many of the disciples went with him, and much people. Let me point to two things here. It was not all of the disciples, but many of them went. And there were other people with him. There were followers with him. These were not the multitudes. You know how people gather? People gather. They hear about something happening. They go to see what's happening. These are not simply disciples. These are not the multitudes. It's not just those gathering in one place. These are followers. These are individuals, much people that have come from one place and followed him to another. Now, when he came nigh to the gate of the city, let me point something out here. And this is where I believe our profound discovery begins. The Bible says gate, but here's what I need you to understand. It really was not a gate. This city was not a gated city. Many of the cities that Jesus goes into and they talk about the gate, there is literally a gate. This was a city open. This was a city, the people were nice and social, and they were not of a mindset of a need for protection from outside sources, from outside challenges and things going on, outside conditions. So there really was no gate. This was the entrance to the city, but there was no physical gate. You heard the word many, you heard the word much, and I'm going to continue here. Keep this in mind, what I just said about that gate. Nigh to the gate of the city, behold, there was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. I'm going to pause again. Looking for profound discovery here, things to think about. Now, this city is called Naim. And there was a woman in the Old Testament who was dealing with a similar situation. And her name was Naomi. Okay. We're in a city called Naim. And I'm reminiscing of a time of a woman named Naomi. And Naomi says, don't call me that. Call me Mara, because God has dealt bitterly with me. And she felt that God had dealt bitterly with her because she, like this woman in Naim, was a widow. And not only was she a widow, meaning she had lost her husband, but she was burying her son. The difference here is that Naomi had two sons, both of which died. This woman in Naim has one son. However, her only child is dead, and her husband is dead. Her connections on both ends have expired. Let's say it that way for now. Now, let's continue on. It says, and she was a widow. Now, and much people of the city was with her. So we got many people came with Jesus. Much people were with him. This woman comes along in Naim, and much people are with her. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said unto her, weep not. Okay. And he came and touched the bear or the buyer. Now, so what a buyer is, if you think about what the pallbearers bring out, and they carry them on thing with the poles on either end, and multiple people are holding on to them, and it's what the casket goes on, right? And so Jesus goes and touches the buyer, and in touching the buyer says, and they that bear him stood still. And he said, young man. Now, in my Bible, in my translation, the word young is capitalized. It's capitalized to denote something significant. We say a certain man, we say a certain city, we say a certain woman. And the Bible does certain things to denote or make things significant. And so in this text, the Y in young is capitalized. There's something proper about it. There's something significant about it. There's something profound in nature about it. I say unto thee, arise. And he that was dead sat up. My focus today is going to be where this comma, from the comma to the period, and began to speak. And he delivered him to his mother, and there came a fear on all, and they glorified God, saying that a great prophet is risen up among us, and that God had visited his people. And this rumor of him went forth throughout all Judea and throughout all the region round about. Now, when I think about this, as you can see in reading it, there's so many things that stood out, so many things that resonated with me. And those things resonated, but something kept sitting, there was a question of why this capital Y? Why was the man's age so significant? And so I consider the city that has no gates, has no fear, and concern or overwhelming concern with the things that are going on outside. It's not a small city, so its size has nothing does not depict its lack for a need of a gate. Clearly, they think that they have relevant resources. It's near the water. And any of the cities that are near water, close by the water, they are some type of not necessarily a port city, but they have access to things that people further inland do not. So there were many reasons why this place should have been guarded, could have been guarded. Reasons why it would have been guarded. You hear me saying coulda, shoulda, woulda, but it wasn't about that. This text talks to us about fear, faith, and moving forward. And let me tell you why I believe that it talks to us about fear, faith, and moving forward. Fear, not from the context that we're accustomed to. And this is where profound moves into a practical interaction. Okay. It's difficult. No parent expects to bury their child. Okay. It was one thing to precede her husband in death. It's something completely different to precede her child in death. And so we see her at a place of mourning. We see her weeping. We see them, many people following Jesus, and we see many people following her. And they're going to the burial grounds. And as they're going to the burial grounds, Jesus stops, sees the woman, and speaks to her. Jesus says to her, "Weep not." I want you to think about cooperation. We talked about fear, faith, and moving forward, right? Fear, faith, and moving forward. The woman, it doesn't tell us whether or not she obeyed, um, but we know that in the end she was comforted. So Jesus says, "Weep not." He moves forward past her. Okay, I need you to consider what a processional typically looks like. It is the sepulcher that, not the sepulcher, but the casket that goes first, the thing that's on the bier that's being carried out. The dead goes first. The dead body goes first. They're carrying it out, and then people are following behind it, right? And so Jesus has not yet made it to um, to the buyer yet. And he speaks to the woman and he says, "Weep not." In saying weep not, he moves on, and this is what he does. He does not touch the casket, he touches the buyer. He does not touch the woman, he touches the buyer. He does not touch the pallbearers, he touches the buyer. And so, in that, he touches the buyer, but when he touches it, others immediately take action. Look at what it says. It says in the text that after he touched the buyer, they that bear him, that bear the dead body, stood still. And he said to the young man, they had an expectation. They had an expectation because they knew that based on what was said, something was about to happen. They had an expectation because now Jesus moves past the mother and onto the casket, and he touches the buyer, and they stand still. There's something about going in one direction. They were headed to the burial ground. They were headed to the place where they were going to lay this man to rest. Why did Jesus's touching the buyer cause them to stand still? Cooperation. And so I said to you that the significance was going to come from "and began to speak." There needed not be any confusion. There are times where uh, bodies that are dead or that they have expired, movement was not enough. It was not, I'm going to say this, it was not uncommon for dead bodies to sit up in the casket, right? Because they have this activity. They have this activity where they're moving. And so they have this activity where they're moving, this postmortem movement, or a spasm. Um, and when they spasm, it doesn't mean that they've come back to life. It's some type of involuntary movement that's taking place within the body. And so the text tells us that the body stood up. It wasn't enough for the body to stand up. There was speech. The person spoke, as a second level of proof, as a second identifier that I am still alive. And I am still alive is significant for an individual um, that is looking to stop a process. I'm still alive. When they go to check a body to see if it's dead, they look for a pulse. They get close to the nose and the mouth. They look for breath. And so they look for these things to find out if they're still alive. And so, what did I say? Cooperation, we're talking about fear, we're talking about faith, we're talking about moving forward. And so, the body not only gets up or moves, but the son speaks. And so, the son speaks. And as a result of that, Jesus delivers the child to its mother, to his mother. And so, it says, and fear came to all of them. This is a different type of fear. This is not the fear that we're accustomed to. This is a reverence and respect. Okay. And you heard me say fear, you heard me say faith, you heard me say moving forward. And so when you realize that something you thought was dead, you've already begun the mourning process. And someone says to you, stop what you're doing, weep not. Why would you tell someone that's mourning? They're in the process of mourning. They're in the process of dealing with their grief, dealing with their loss. You tell them to stop doing that. Why? You do that because you know that there's something else about to happen, that things are about to change, that the direction and the destiny of the situation are about to change. So Jesus understands that the direction is about to change. Jesus knows that the destiny is about to change. They were headed to a destination called the gravesite. They had what they thought was a dead body in a box, carried on a bier, moving to be buried. Now, if I say to you today that the dead thing that you were about to lay to rest is not dead, it still has movement and it still has speech. If I were to say that to you today, to something that you thought that you lost, would you be willing to cooperate with the words that I'm saying? Would you be willing to obey what I'm saying to you? It takes a lot for an individual that is in the process of mourning to move from mourning to celebration. It takes us, when we have accepted the fact that something or someone significant has died or expired, it's difficult for us to change course. It's difficult for us to redirect that energy and turn it somewhere else. That's not easy. But what I'm asking you to do today, as we talk about growth, the profound discovery is the capital Y. The young man still had more time, which was going to give not only him more time, but his mother more time. Not only his mother more time, but the multitudes that had come to grieve his life were going to have more time. I'm saying to you that the thing that you thought was dead still has movement and still has speech. If you're willing to change what you're doing and change where you're going, this thing still has life. And I started talking about Naomi because I'm going to close in the same way. Naomi asked them to change her name. Call me Mara, because the Lord has dealt bitterly with me. She was focused on the problem and she had forgotten the promise. that will be on her family. There was no way that God could keep a promise to her of lineage when the father and the sons are dead. So, what I'm saying to you is your situation looks bleak. But if you could stop weeping, be still, and be willing to change direction, whatever you were mourning still has life. It still has movement and it still has speech. When Jesus said to the young man, "Arise," the body stood up. Jesus never told the man to speak. The man chose to speak on his own as a proof of life. Once you obey, once you stop weeping, once you obey, once you be still, then that thing will do the rest. The thing that you thought was dead, the thing that still has life, it will do what's next. Regardless of what you expected it to do, regardless of what you called it to do, it's going to do what's next. And it is going to change your direction. Jesus delivered the young man back to his mother. Now, notice that at the end, they say a great prophet has risen among us and that God has visited his people. But what they said wasn't counted as a fact, it was counted as a rumor. This is why I said fear, a different type of fear, faith, and moving forward. Moving forward, when you grow from this, make sure that you're confident that it's not a rumor, that you know that it is fact, that you know that it is truth. Don't let it be gossip. Don't let it be hearsay. Live your life as if it were the truth. Be confident and be sure of what I'm saying to you today. Because to the woman, it wasn't a rumor. To the son that was dead, the young man that was now alive, sitting up and speaking, delivered back to his mother, it was not a rumor. When people say to you or ask you the question, what has God done for you? How has God changed your direction? How has God moved you from a place of mourning to a place of new beginning? When you answer that question, be sure so that they don't leave unsure as to whether or not it's fear or faith, but that is something that will now move them forward. I said about cooperation. The mother had to stop weeping. The pallbearers had to stop moving. And the young man had to get up and start speaking. In order for the miracle to manifest, everyone had to cooperate. Jesus was working a miracle, but others participated as miracle workers. There are going to be times where those connected to the miracle have to cooperate in order for it to manifest. Think about that. When you think about fear, your reverence for God, faith, your belief that what God said, what God did, and that God is able to still do, and moving forward. God does not expect us to be stagnant. God expects us to grow. The next time there's an opportunity for a miracle, cooperate, participate, and watch God orchestrate the miracle, the sign, the wonder. And when the miracle manifests, when the wonder starts to work, when the sign has been seen or shown, share so that people know it's not a rumor, but it's a fact. It's the truth. It really happened. It really did. And God really is who God said he is. My name is Overseer Julius Ford. It has been a privilege to share with you today in the dig, where we discovered something profound about a city that felt it didn't need protection, about a people that cooperated so that God could work a miracle, about a mother who obeyed, pallbearers that stood still, and a body that got up and spoke. As we interacted with that in a practical way, I reminded us from the text that there are going to be times that in order to change direction, we're going to have to change our mind. And finally, to grow prolifically. What God has said, what God has done, it is not a rumor, it's a fact. Don't let your gospel be gossip. Let your testimony be true, because we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. There are miracles, signs, and wonders. You're not to follow them, they're following you. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. I'll see you next time. I believe we have one more week together, where we will share again at 7 on Saturday of next week. That is also the beginning of Palm Sunday will be that following day. But if you have things that you're looking for out of the week, you need a midday moment, you need a daily download from God, I'm here to say to you that if you go to the Kotech Facebook family page, you will find the inspiration that you need for the day. You will find the word from God that will get you through the rest of the week, all week long, at least once, if not multiple times throughout the day. You can come to the Facebook family page, the Kotech Facebook family page, to hear from someone that is sharing a word from this book. And we are learning not just about miracles, signs, and wonders, but about the greater work. Because the work that Jesus did, it was final, but it was only the beginning. There's a work for you. There's a work for me. There's a work for everybody. There's a miracle, there's a sign, and there's a wonder waiting for each one of us. We're not waiting for it. It's waiting for us. In Jesus' name.